messing around the other day with this effect of a particle reveal that you can apply on any object and trigger it with a couple of modifiers, and it does a cool reveal. Basic scene so far, just the controller. Feel free to use the same controller. I got it from Turbo Squid, or feel free to kind of drop in any object that you want. I'm gonna just quickly set up my scene. I'm gonna drop in a camera, zero out everything here, zoom it out, and look at it, and bring in my controller. I'm just gonna tilt it in a cool direction so you can see the particles in a cool way. Maybe something like this. I'm gonna also make this a square just for now, and let's zoom in on it. I think something like this is fine. Cool. We'll worry about lights and stuff after. For now, this works. I'm gonna protect this camera, and let's drop in an XP system. I'm gonna go to the emitter object. Let's use our controller as the object. Let's zero out the speed and increase the actually, let's make this shots and increase the shot count to like 50,000. See how this looks. Okay, actually let's make this polygon area so they're distributed more evenly. That was good. Now let's add some more particles. Actually, let's make this 100,000. Okay, cool. You know what? 300,000. Perfect. Let's drop in a Nexus Infectio, and that's gonna kind of create this infectious effect. Drop this in. I like to keep it organized and put it in the Nexus folder here. Let's add a seed. A seed is where the infection is gonna start from. I'm gonna make it pretty small. Our object here is pretty small, so we're gonna be working with small numbers. Let's make the seed be in a cool spot. I'm gonna use the controller stick as the spot in my object here. So something like this, and let's press play. Now you'll notice that the infection starts from here and it continues to spread. You know what? I'm gonna reduce the particle count just so we can work with this more comfortably. Let's make it 30,000. Cool. So it does something like this. I'm gonna add another one of these seeds on the other stick, just to kind of give it that cool effect. So I'm gonna go back to Infectio, add seed, also make it 1, and place it around here. And let's go to the left camera. Place this somewhere around. Where's the stick? It's right there. Okay, it's probably good enough. Let me take away the camera here. Oops. And place this using this view for now. Up a little bit higher. Cool. Go back to the camera and let's see how this looks. Cool. Good enough. So now they both start from here and they spread. You can control how fast and slow it spreads by playing with these parameters, so you can make it infect, or currently it's infecting 3 at a time. That's continuing to spread over and over again. That's why it's filling in. If this is bigger, then it's going to infect even faster, and if it's slower, it's going to infect slower. I'm going to keep it at 3. I think that's fine. Maybe even, I think 3 is fine. Eventually when we have more particles, it'll look cool. So that's as simple as getting this selection going. The next step we want to do is we want the ones that are infected and the ones that are incubating, meaning these blue ones here, to do something. So on the Infectio tab, I'm gonna, for the color mode, use groups for this, and I'm gonna create two groups. The incubating, again meaning these blue ones, they're the ones that are not fully infected yet, and the yellow ones are the infected ones. So I'm gonna create a group here, and I'm gonna call this incubating, and I'm gonna create a group here and call this infected. And let's drag them both into the groups. I'm just gonna call this right stick and left stick. Cool. So now that we have a group for both of these, we can make these groups do something. I'm gonna, just for the sake of seeing this better, I'm gonna go to emitters, display, and change this to a sphere. And we're gonna make the radius small. I'm gonna make it 0.1. Let's see how this looks. Okay, cool. Let's make it actually even smaller. Let's make it 0.05. And I'm gonna bump up the particle count a little bit more. Let's make it 60,000. Let's see how this looks. Okay. Again, this is just so we can see it. But now that we have this, let's create a modifier, or let's use a modifier. I'm going to use a gravity first and make the ones that are infected to start flying up a little bit. So I'm going to drop in a gravity. I'll put it in the nexus, and the gravity is going to be -5. Again, this is going to depend on your object and so on, but I'm just going to use -5, and I'm going to give it a variation of 2. And the groups affected, I want it to be the infected, meaning the infected are the ones that are going to have this gravity applied to them. So let's see how this looks. That's cool. And I can do the same, for example, for the incubating. I can do something else for the incubating. For example, we can make the incubating one slightly bigger, which I'll share once we get to the render section. For now, maybe let's also add a turbulence, very slight turbulence, but just enough to give it a little bit of an organic feel. Let's keep it at the simplex one. I'm gonna make the strength really weak and see how this looks. Actually, let's make sure we go to groups affected and apply the infected one here. Otherwise, all the particles are gonna do it. Let's see how this looks. Now they kind of move a little bit. If you want something a little bit more drastic, we can do that too. You can increase the strength, or you can bring the scale down, so it's gonna happen in smaller areas. Let's do that, and let's make the strength 0.8. See how this looks. I think that's cool. Maybe the strength is too strong. Depends on what you're going for. Really, you can also play around with different ones here. Let me quickly try the var noise. That's cool. I'm gonna bring the scale back up to 80 and the strength to 0.2. But feel free to play with this to whatever effect that you're going for. This looks cool for me. Cool. So it's gonna keep doing this. Now, obviously, let me turn off my camera here. Obviously, this is gonna keep going forever. Like, these guys are gonna keep flying forever. But what we want to do is make them disappear at a certain range, and we're gonna do this using an X question. I'm gonna drop in an X question. I'll put it in the nexus here, and we're gonna create a question. Our question is gonna be, once one of these particles has traveled a certain distance, I want it to scale down to 0, or I want the radius to change to 0. So I'm gonna drop in a question, and I'm gonna say if the particle traveled more than, and remember this whole controller is pretty small, so the values we're going to be playing with here are going to be pretty small. I'm going to say 1.5, if they travel more than 1.5 centimeters, I want something to happen to them. And for this sake, I'm gonna just, before we do the scale, just so we see it properly, I'm gonna go to actions, and I'm gonna set the color to something else. Let's set it to like pink. So now when they travel 1.5 centimeters, they're gonna turn pink. Let's see how this looks. I like using color at first just because it's really easy to see. There they are. They start changing right around there. You also notice that they change instantly. It goes right away from 0 to 1. So what we could do is make it more gradual. So this way they don't just disappear when they scale. Eventually they will kind of transition to it. You do that using the weight thing here. So I'm gonna go 50%. Now they're gonna have a slight transition. You'll notice here some of them are light pink, some of them are full pink. So let's now, instead of the set color, let's change this to particle radius. And you remember we had our radius here set at 0.05. We're simply gonna go to 0. So the set radius is gonna be 0. If we leave it at 5, then they're gonna grow bigger up until they reach 5. We're gonna go 0, and let's see how this looks. There they are. You'll notice here they start scaling down, and eventually they become 0. And it creates a cool little effect. It creates this little, bubble chemical kind of effect. And it's really as simple as that to get to this. What's cool is that this is dynamic. If you want it to be to disappear later on, you can change this value to something bigger. You can go 3, and now they'll disappear like around here potentially, with just a number change, which is kind of cool. Cool. Let's leave it lighter. Let's leave it 1.5, but you get the idea. Now that we have this little effect, and this is gonna take, let's see, around this many frames to get through the whole thing. Pretty much around 90 frames. I'm gonna extend this just so we have some more time, but pretty much around 90-ish frames we are completely in the clear. I'll extend it because eventually what we can do is apply an XP cache and retime it so we can slow things down in certain areas. Let's start rendering this. So I'm going to drop in a plane in the background, and let's go 90 degrees, and let's bring this back around here, and let's bring in my redshift viewer, put it here on the right. Let's open this and let's bring in a light. I'm gonna bring in RS light and give it a target tag, which is gonna be the controller, and I'm gonna move it somewhere in the top right around here and a little bit higher. And I'm gonna make it quite a bit smaller since our object is smaller. Obviously this is very intense, so we're gonna drop down the intensity quite a bit. Let's go 10. Let's go actually 20. Oops, not 220. Again, super basic, but just enough to give it some depth. If you want to go more dramatic, you can bring the light in from the bottom, for example. But we're gonna keep ours pretty simple. I'm gonna add one more of these lights. I'm gonna hide the first light, and I'm gonna bring in the new light from this side and bring it up, and let's make it quite a bit smaller. I just want to fill in some of these lights on the left, and I'm gonna bring down the intensity quite a bit. Let's make this like just 3, and now I'm gonna turn on both lights, and that's cool. let's now, of course, if we play this, the particles are not going to show up in here, but the way we do that is simply with a redshift tag. So before we do that, I'm going to bring in an object. I'm going to go to, it depends which object you want. You can just use a sphere if you want and so on, but if you click on this, go to models, search for like rock. I'm just going to bring in one of these simple rocks here. I'm going to take out the material on it. I'm not going to need it, and scale it down quite a bit. I'm going to move it out of the way. Now I can see it here, and I'm going to apply on the emitter tag a redshift tag. I'm going to press this and go custom object and use my sphere as the object. I'm going to press play. And there they are. One thing I noticed right away is that all our objects are positioned the same way. So to make this a little bit more natural, I'm going to go to the emitter, go to extended data, go to use rotation, and just say random. So now they're gonna be random in terms of their position, and right away it's starting to look a little bit like our final render. And if you want to play with the size, a couple things you can do. You can change the size of the stone here, or you can go to the redshift tag here and change the scale multiplier. So if we want this to be slightly smaller, I can go 0.8, and now they changed size a little bit. I'm going to bring in a yellow for this. You can texture this however way you want, so you just throw the texture on the stone, of course. I'm going to use Grayscale Gorilla and bring in a plastic, like this shiny, oops, connect this shiny yellow plastic. I'm going to send it over and use that here. Cool. And if I want to make it more intense, I can open this, maybe use the base color and bring this up a little bit. Actually, the other way around. Let's go like this. Cool. It all depends on the effect that you're going for here. Yeah, you can also add more things here. So if you do want to add a different rock or something else, you can drop it in and then also apply the redshift tag to it, and it'll do the same thing. So we could simply duplicate this stone. Just gonna take the easy way here quickly and go to the redshift tag here, put the second stone in here, and for the second stone, let's give it another. You'll notice it's instantly using it here. Let's give it another cool thing. Let's go with this green and apply that here, and you'll see the effect taking place right there. And what we can do as well, now we can change the size of the second one. Like this other green one, I can scale it up a little bit so it's dominating more of the visual. But anyways, I'll leave this at that. Yeah, I'll keep this video quite short. That's pretty much how we end up in an effect where, let me play this out and press pause. You'll notice this continue. It's a little bit, if it's a little bit too intense, obviously you can do a couple things. You can scale down this, go a little bit even more. Let's go 0.6. Now they're going to be even lighter, disappear faster. If you want them to disappear even faster, again, go back to your NX question and say the value traveled is like only 0.5. And now if I go back and press play, they're going to disappear quite faster. I can bring back the scale here to 0.8 to fill it in a little bit more, and now they disappear like really fast. Again, it's highly dynamic, and it'd be pretty powerful. Cool. Thanks, guys.